in a situation where you find that you look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us on Trust TV's Daybreak. Right now it's time for us to take a look at the front pages of the papers and see what's making of the news. We'll start with Daily Trust newspaper, and headline reads, Governors-elect pledge better deals, receive certificates of return. And riders here that says, my family won't have role in governance. That's according to Abba Gida Gida. It's a new dawn in Benue, Reverend Father Alia. I'll remain fair, transparent, according to the Nasarawa State Governor, and our expectations, according to residents. I'll be governor for all, that is according to Rivers State's Fabura, and let's do it together, Buni urges opposition. Now, all these details can be found on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Looking at those stories now, we've identified politicians plotting interim government, that is according to the DSS, that's on page 5. And Pope Francis, 86, in hospital with respiratory infection. That is on page 3. How Zenith Bank grew interest income to 540 billion naira in 2022 is also another story on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Now, these are the major stories making the front page of Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right, we move to the Leadership newspaper this morning, with the major headline, interim government plots, security experts, politicians warn against a repeat of June 12 crisis. With the riders there asked DSS to arrest those behind plans. Nigerians must resist plots, says Bulama Bukati. They are enemies of Nigeria, Senator Adeyeye. We will not accept any undemocratic government. PDP CSO's idea, senseless, Shehu Sani. And you'll find pictures there of coming in from various states where governors-elect showed up at the INEC premises to pick up their certificate of return. And of course, the Nasarawa State Governor taking advantage of his proximity to the FCT to come present his certificate to the President. Well, beyond the ceremony, I'm not sure what that exactly signifies. And to other stories, Fenifere in disarray as Fansorati counter suspension of 2 officials. To other stories, CBN goes tough as small banks rush for holding companies. PDP will be stronger without IU, Wike. And FGOK is 24.2 billion free internet for 20 airports, varsities, and market. And Senate moves to recover 16 trillion unpaid ground rent. Police Commission promotes Mba 23 others as AIGs and 33 CPs. Audit defaulters to get 5-year jail term as National Assembly passes bills. These are the major stories on the front page of Leadership newspaper.
Next, we'll take a look at the Daily Independent, the major story on the front page. We've identified key players in plot for interim government, that is according to the DSS. Other stories here, 2023 census, MPC won't canvass question on religious affiliation. I'm not scared of EFCC after leaving office, that is according to Wike, and he questions how IU spent 12 billion naira realized from congresses. Details of that can be found on page 7. Still looking at the Daily Independent, Tinubu at his 71st birthday assures of rebuilding Nigeria. And FGOK's 59.7 billion naira for rivers oil producing communities. And insurance industry gathers 726.2 billion naira premium in Q4 2022. Those details can be found on page 6. Still on the front page of the Daily Independent, condemnation trails planned construction of second airport in Edo. Benin Airport records 907,000 passenger movement in 2 years, and additional airport misplaced priority, bad economics according to analysts. Moving towards the top of the front page there, the very middle, real reason Ihedioha quit PDP, Imo-Guba race revealed. That is on page 7. At the very top of the front page there, Arase promises to tackle tendencies that make policemen corrupt, assumes duty as substantive PSC chairman. And lastly, on the front page of the Daily Independent, I was pressurized to manipulate Abia Guba poll, as according to the INEC returning officer.
Moving on to the blueprint this morning, still staying with the DSS story. key political actors plotting interim government. Once any attempt to thwart democracy will be crushed. Cautions judiciary, media, CSO unyielding to plot, and the chance to build Nigeria, my greatest birthday gift, President-elect. Buhari APC governors upbeat, confident on Tinubu's capacity. And two other stories, we have pictures there of the various individuals that were sworn into various offices by the president on the floor of the council chamber ahead of the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday. Native demands 15 trillion damages, seek court order for FCT state status. And by Elsa Guba, stick to Electoral Act, group tells APC National Working Committee. Police rescues 10 kidnapped civilians and 3 cops in Kogi. And petrol to sell at 400 per litre after subsidy removal. That's coming from Pengerson. Buhari swears in ex-IGP Arasi as PSC chair. Boko Haram bomb maker dies, stepping on self-made IED. Talking about karma there. Lagos government compensate bus train accident victims with jobs and scholarship. And to the last story there, Internet FGOK 24.2 billion for 20 airport, 43 schools and 6 markets.
Next we'll take a look at the First News newspaper, and the major story reads, DSS unmasks misguided politicians behind interim government plot. Says masterminds planning to obtain frivolous court injunctions to stop Tinubu's inauguration. They plan to sponsor unrest that will warrant declaration of state of emergency. Still on the front page of the newspaper, my wife's children won't be part of governance. That's according to the governor-elect of Kano State. And US hikes student tourist visa fees by 15%. Assault, report yourself within 7 days, police tell Portable. It is another story on the front page of First News. Well, moving towards the top of the front page there. Tinubu will turn Nigeria around. That is according to APC governors. INEC presents certificates of return to governors-elect, and I was pressurized to manipulate Abia Gabriel results. That is according to the returning officer. Finally, on the front page of the First News, I won't disappoint Nigerians, Tinubu pledges.
And moving on to News Direct, we would quickly pick those stories that have not been highlighted by other papers earlier reviewed. FIRC set to protect rights of passengers against negligence, recklessness by commercial drivers. Sustained growth, Transcorp PLC delivers strong performance as revenue rises by 21%. And 2023 NLNG science quiz competition focuses on net zero. I think net zero emission there. So it's trying to say, Makinde Deputy or your Assembly members elect receive certificate of return. And finally, Sanwo-Olu Abiodun, political religious leader, facilitate hold special prayers as Tinubu turns 71. That's the major story. Those are the major stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
All right, now we'll take a look at the business day. The major story reads, moribund mills, paper imports gulp 1.63 trillion naira in 5 years. And other stories on the front page of the business day. Frequent tanker explosions rouse regulator into toughening safety rules. Naira crunch, how banks can regain trust. And Nigeria lags as peers enjoy Shell's bumper payout. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Business Day newspaper this morning.
And those are the papers we have for you at this time on the morning show. We now have the privilege of having in our midst, as always, the editor-in-chief Deadline newspaper, Marlon Nasrullah. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
As the newsrooms were battling to round off production yesterday, we were inundated with what appears to be, I'm not sure if it's, how would I call it? Well, what appears to be a warning to all of us, media houses, CSOs, and even the judiciary about how real the plot is to stop the handing over. This has been a rhetoric that has been on, especially from the ruling party, about efforts to thwart this democracy, about how some people are not willing to go, about all kinds of narratives. Some spokesperson of the ruling party had sort of become prophets in some sort, with this new revelation by the DSS. What do you make of that revelation by the DSS yesterday?
Well, I expected them to have gone a step further by arresting the people that they have identified, because that's what they said in the statement, that they have identified, certain individuals. And because they didn't do that, you can see some people are already trying to, mention some names, like one of the spokespersons of the ruling APC, that's the former aviation minister, Fani Kayode. He mentioned quite a number of names, most of them members of the opposition candidates and what have you. So I think the DSS should have gone, a step further by mentioning, the names of those who are part of the plot. Or in the alternative, we should see them having their day in court. If really you have succeeded in, identifying them, then what stops you from going forward with either prosecution, what the law allows? That's what you should do, because the DSS, has a responsibility mostly around national security and things that have to do with domestic threats and what have you. But the way they have been going about it, they have opened themselves to all sorts of accusations. Some are saying they are already trying to see how they will help the president-elect, to secure his mandate and what have you, which is allowed by the law, because now that he has been elected, he is already a state property. So I don't think that's a valid argument to say, but I think, like I mentioned earlier, they should go a step further by telling us who these individuals are, so that at least we will know what to do with them, because this is something that is reasonable, and the law is clear as to what to do with cases like this.
So without actually naming these individuals that you've identified, what exactly is the point of saying that you've identified these people and that's that? So what do we do with that information?
Maybe they are trying to preempt, some of the people, because as you know, so many people are already in court. Some will be going to court. Some are already staging protests. Some are likely to do the same. But now that they have said, there will be frivolous court cases, there will be all sorts of protests and what have you. So all those that are willing to participate in things like this, probably they might have been preempted by what the DSS.
So the question really is, as we've always said, I mean, even the ruling party had always used the word, if you're unhappy with what has happened, go to court. Whether frivolous or germane, isn't that a case to be left to the judiciary to determine on its honor, rather than make it look like, because on the surface it appears like your argument is not valid, don't waste the time. I mean, it's their money, it's their time. Don't even bother going, because it sort of messes up the atmosphere. Is that not chewing too far?
I think that's what you said is very true, because that's why we have the courts. For those who feel aggrieved, those who think they have been cheated in a way, they can go to the court and try to see what they can get out of it. And then as far protest, the law allows it. Maybe it's for the security agencies to be able to provide the necessary security, so that the protest can be done peacefully, without being hijacked by all sorts of questionable characters. But nobody should stop anyone, from trying to test the law, by going to the court. It's allowed, it's constitutional. So why should you maybe, because somebody is trying to go to court, start saying this is the end, this is the idea, this is what he is aiming at. It's for the law, it's for the courts to actually decide. If the cases are frivolous, as so many are saying, then the courts will do the needful. You don't have to tell them what to do.
All right. Well, one thing with the Nigerians generally is I think we like ceremonies. We like making noise about a lot of things, whether they deserve to or not. Certificates of return were issued to governors-elect, House of Assembly members-elect, and all that. And we've seen how most of them were welcomed with so much pomp and pageantry. And even some governors taking advantage and going to present their certificates to the president himself, making a big ceremony out of the whole situation. Is all this necessary?
I don't think it's necessary because if you look at the task ahead of them, honestly, it doesn't call for celebration, at least not at this level. The one that you are talking about, presenting his certificate to actually they said they were at the president office to thank the president for the oil exploration activity that took place, but proximity, and you use maybe try to kill two birds with one stone. So maybe he tried to use that, and because there are so many people still challenging his victory, despite the fact that he has been issued with a certificate of return. The last time I checked, there are still
series of protests.
Series of protests. So maybe this is a way of trying to show the people that look, you are just wasting your time. I have already moved on. Even the president has congratulated, things like that. But honestly, I don't think our governors-elect, should be celebrating, mere collection of certificate of return. Like I said, if you look at the task ahead of them, honestly, they should just try to hit the ground running. By now, those of them that are, will be taking office for the first time, I believe they should by now, marshal out a plan, the way they are going to go about it. As for those who are already in office who have gotten maybe a second term, at least they know the issues and they know the things that they need to concentrate on. So coming out to be celebrating, carrying all sorts of advertisements, that's not what Nigerians are after. You have made so many promises and the people will still remember. Whether you forget them or not, the people will not forget. So it's for you to find out and try to see how you can go about fulfilling all the promises that you have made, not just coming out to be celebrated.
Interesting. Talking about celebration, I was looking at some jokes yesterday online where he was holding the certificate with the president, and somebody said he feels like a child who had gone out and done very well in the examination and has come home to present his certificate. Well, people have the right to express divergent perspective. But still staying with this issue, you have raised an issue that is very germane, and if we have to escalate that even to the president-elect, are you comfortable with the kind of law that seemed to pervade the national, the nation as it were? It appears people who had won election has basically just retired into some resting point. In other climes, these are times where conversation becomes very strong and thick around the personalities that we are expecting will be part of government, what they are bringing in, and how that can impact the direction of governance. And for some, where the people feel there are questionable characters about them, it comes up for very stiff debate. Why are we staying away from all of this and waiting for swearing in before we begin this kind of conversation?
Well, some will say, if you look at the campaign, schedules, all the visitations, the traveling and what have you, maybe they need some rest. But honestly, I don't think they should have known, you requested for this. And honestly, it's not something that you will just go into hiding. This is the time for you, like I said earlier, to hit the ground running, by starting with all the things that you are planning to do, because this is the time to start. Because if you fail to start at this particular time, then only God knows what will happen. Because if you see what the National Assembly did, for instance, one of the recent bills that the president actually assented to had to do with the number of months that elected officials can go without having their cabinets in place. So how do you form the cabinet? I don't think you should start doing that by May 29th. This is the time for you to start doing that, so that when it comes to vetting, when it comes to all the necessary things, you wouldn't have problems with them because you have started, early. But if you allow, maybe thinking that you need to rest before May 29, then honestly, by the time that that will happen, it may appear late or even worse than that.
All right, well, let's move away slightly from that and talk about, we're still getting fallout from the recently concluded elections, governorship, in fact, and one of the major stories making rounds in the newspapers today is when the resident electoral commissioner for Abia State coming out to make some declarations that there was an attempt to induce her with some monetary gains so that she could be able to change the results of that election. If we're to take that on face value, is it something that we should really applaud at this kind of in this particular situation? I mean, like at this level of our democracy, is it something that we should applaud, or is it something that we should come to expect?
Well, Nigerians actually have been expecting that because our politicians, most of them are actually desperate. They can actually do worse than this, and maybe what the returning officer should have said, is the level to which that has affected the outcome of the result. If, for instance, they succeeded in getting her to do the wrong thing, then she should say it, so that because the law allows the electoral body, 7 days to review the outcomes of elections. So just to come out, and say this is what happened, of course, so many Nigerians will expect that. I personally, know that politicians can go even beyond this. People that are willing to kill, people that are willing to do all sorts of things. Trying to induce electoral official, I think, is the least of the things that they can do. But like I said, if for any reason that has succeeded in affecting the outcome of the result, then we should know, so that at least the law will now be allowed to take its course.
Moving on to other stories. This day, Business Day this morning is reporting that moribund mills, paper imports gulf 1.63 trillion in 5 years. We are a country that consume so much volume of paper. We've been on this conversation forever around how much these paper mills. I mean, if you look at just your own households and your kids in school and how much textbooks they need every time or perhaps every year, it tells you the volume of papers that we really consume, not to talk of the newspapers on a daily basis, examinations and all whatnot. Why is it nearly impossible for us to bring back the paper mill, where we have all the raw materials to actually make these paper mills viable in Nigeria?
Well, let me start by saying that I don't think we are making the most of technology. Some of the physical papers you see around, honestly, they are not necessary. We no longer need them, but at least to an extent, we still need these papers for so many reasons. And we should go beyond talking about the fact that we have potentials. These are things that we can do. And we are spending precious, amount of money.
Foreign exchange for that.
Foreign exchange, something that we can actually make use here at home. We are taking it to help people improve on their own economy when our own is actually suffering. So honestly, the government should see this as a challenge, to see what they can do, even if it means allowing the private individuals to come into this sector, so that at least we will be able to meet up the demands that we have at home. If we are not able to do that, at least we can have it, or to an extent reduce the amount of money that we keep spending. If you look at the newspapers, for instance, some of them are actually surviving by the grace of God, because you need dollars to import the newsprint, and the government is not helping in any way, despite the fact that the newspapers are playing a very critical role, whether it's in the area of development, in peace, in so many other cases. So the government should see this as a challenge and see what they can do to revive all the paper mills that we have in the country.
If not for local consumption, at least we can export. We can export and
certainly
get some
and get money.
All right, so let's still talking about money to be spent and money to be saved. One thing that we've come to try to realize, come and live with the reality, is that the subsidy will be removed, according to the present administration and the incoming one as well. They said that that's going to go. And now we're getting information from Pangason that petrol can sell for as high as 400 naira per litre. Should we brace ourselves for that?
Yeah, I think we should do that because it's clear. The outgoing administration, has already set a timeline for the total withdrawal of subsidy from petroleum products. And then the incoming administration has also made it very clear that they are not going to continue with it because from the argument that they are making, the people that are benefiting from it are not the common people. Mostly the businessmen, the marketers, the major players in the industry are the ones that are making all the money. And mostly they will sell petrol, above the price allowed by the government, and then still go back to the same government to collect money. What I will expect, both the outgoing and incoming administration to focus on is on the issue of palliatives. If there are so many people that I know that are willing to even keep their vehicles at home if the transport system can be efficient and running. But as it is now, so many people have to own vehicles because of the challenges. For instance, if you are the type that works late, by the time you close from work, you may not even see, a commercial vehicle to patronize. And sometimes when you are able to do that, you may end up in the wrong, cab. And before you know it, you are robbed, you lost so many things. So because of that, if we are able to talk about the issue of palliatives, the things that the people will now benefit, whether it's in the form of efficient transport system, whether it's in the form of things that will help the common man. I think nobody will challenge the government when it comes to removing the subsidy. Like you can see, even the Pangason, so many people actually expected these unions to be at the forefront, like opposing the removal of the subsidy. But you can see they are also in support of it because all the arguments we have been making, we've not been able to see that they are, like something that we can take to the bank. So right now, let's talk about the palliative, since the issue of subsidy is like a done deal. As far as for the petrol selling at 400 naira already, so many of us are buying it, around that or even higher. So it's not something that the people have not even started on their own. So let them talk about the palliatives and then go ahead to remove the subsidy.
Right. Before we let you go, I think it's only in Nigeria that we have not recognized that transport is big business. In other countries, it's a major business. Matter of fact, you even have all kinds of incentives, buying monthly tickets so that it saves you some money. Yeah. Some even buy as high as an annual ticket, a one-year ticket. You can jump on the bus 100 times in one day. In fact, for me, one of those trips, I needed to file a report. The internet was not good. I jumped on the public transport because there were free Wi-Fi on board. And once I was done with my report, I jumped out somewhere else. But I hope we get to that point someday. Now that we are talking of free internet at airports and markets and universities, we probably need them free at parks too. But finally, before you go, it's one conversation that has been generating varied reactions online, whether serious or perceived. Yesterday, Abba Gida was saying that his wife will not be part of governance And that is the debate in Kano, whereas in Benue, they are worried about a Reverend Father who has no, who has no wives. What's your take on this whole conversation around the office of the First Lady at a time that we are looking to save money from the cost of governance? Well,
if you look at it constitutionally, there is no role for family members of elected officials. And like what the governor-elect in Kano said, I think it's very important if actually he can see to it that, that happens in the end. Because I remember when President Buhari came into office, he made that famous statement that, she belongs to the kitchen and what have you, that there will be no office of the First Lady. But right now we have office of the First Lady, with all the privileges, aids and privileges that you can think of. So, like you said, in the case of Benue, they don't even have that. But that does not mean, he cannot delegate a responsibility to any of the women in Benue, whether they are elected members or part of the party membership or what have you. The most important thing is to make sure that if these people end up in governance, they are not doing it just to the disadvantage of the family alone, that the people are the ones to benefit. If we can make that clear, then nothing should stop you from allowing maybe your wife to play a role, in helping you to discharge your mandates and keep the promises that you made to Nigerians.
Interesting perspective there from Nasir Lawal, especially in the face of what we saw from Katsina, where two wives rushed to the social media, and in their handle they had already adjusted into the office of the wife of the governor-elect, and two of them giving themselves two different titles linked to the same position, more like another race for who becomes the official First Lady. Like he said, we hope the conversation moves to what benefits the people rather than those in power. This is the much we can bring to you on Newspaper Review this morning. Thank you very much again for finding time to be here.
Thank you.
Just to remind you that you still owe me my iftar. I don't know when that will be before. And Ibrahim as well. So I'm drawing my rosters so that I can start substituting that from my own daily feeding plans. But once again, thank you very much.
That means you will have to come together.
All right, we'll find a way to do that. We would now take a short break. See you at the top of the hour where we bring you more from Daybreak. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look at the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that